them up to 5 years old, from 18 months to 5 years old in one class there. But,
Yeah.
and then they promoted me to an older class because somebody else, well, they broke that all up. And now I'm working with babies again.
Uh-huh.
So, and we start them in 3 months and keep them in there until they're at least 2, and sometimes a little past.
Right.
And
Did
they're
you
just
start that?
love kids.
You should have her start.
But
that.
now, do you have special questions you want?
Well, I just jotted some things down that I was
Okay.
curious about. Well, I could tell you, I've been there since I was 3 years old.
Oh, have you?
Yes.
Did you go to Homewood?
No.
No.
My dad, they had a door knocking campaign in 1980. Well, maybe I was old, maybe I was 4, like 1981 or 82, and in East Liberty. And they came to my house and they talked with my dad, and he was baptized, and I've been there
Oh.
ever since.
Neat.
Yep. And so,
So you've been at 5th and Beechwood.
yeah, for 30 years now.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And so I, it's very cool for me to be able to talk with you and hear how it began and all of that stuff, because, I'm very interested in it, and, it's a very special place to me.
Yeah.
We were
It's
married
very
there.
special to me too.
I met her there. We were married there.
And we have 2 kids, and
She was baptized there. I was
Now, how old are
baptized
your
there.
kids?
8 and 5, and my son has been going there since. And both my son
Since
and
5
daughter.
days old.
Yeah, they've both been
Yeah.
going there like since day one
Well,
of being
both of my
born.
children were born while we were at 5th and Beechwood.
Uh-huh.
And that's where they started, of course, my husband was a deacon there. And after we had kids. And but we were, as far as the building and all, we were working on a place and all, because he helped with the search for finding, because it was hard. We came to Pittsburgh in March of 1946. We were married. I'm a Tennessean by birth. I've been here a lot longer. I'm not too happy about moving back. My kids are there, and that'll be great. But except that I don't speak like a Pittsburgher.
You don't.
I really love Pittsburgh, and the church has just, there were so few of us, and it has just been so important
Yes.
to us. And my mother was really unhappy when I married because he was not in the church. But she got over that. And, we were married in November of 45, came to Pittsburgh in March, and we lived over in the Shady Side section there.
Okay.
2-room apartment, shared a bath, and you had to know somebody that knew somebody that was related to somebody else to find a place to live. It was just awful to try to find a place to live, because it was right after World War II was over. All those came back, and if they hadn't married while they were in the service, they got married immediately when they got back. And there just weren't enough, because nobody had done building during the war. You couldn't get a telephone. We waited almost a year for a phone. You couldn't buy a car unless you found one and even junkers were worth, outrageous amounts, because you just couldn't get one.
Mm-hmm.
They had to retool all of everything, and so. But we really had trouble finding a place, a Church of Christ, because there was one Millbridge and Climax, Stella. I don't know if you even knew, it's been gone for a long time. But they didn't have a phone. They didn't have a regular preacher. They didn't have a phone. The church that met in Memorial Hall, there was, of course, you couldn't have a listing for that. And they didn't have a preacher either, because preachers were as scarce as apartments. And, but we were home, back to my home in Tennessee in August of that year. And the preacher that had baptized me was in Philadelphia, located in Philadelphia at that time. And he had been to Pittsburgh to do meetings for the congregation that was meeting in a Baptist building in Oakland at the time. But by this time, they had sold the building, and which is why the congregation was, and it was called Oakland Church of Christ at that time, and why they had to go into the Memorial Hall for a space to meet. And but he gave us that he knew the Meixners, and Brother Ed Meixner was one of the elders at the congregation there, and he gave us their phone number and address, and so we went to a payphone somewhere and called them. And of course they were overjoyed. Anybody coming in, especially young couples and all, you know. So they just told us where and how to find, where it was, because we were new to Pittsburgh still. And it wasn't very far. And we took a streetcar, because at the time we didn't have a car, couldn't get a car. And but they just enfolded us, it was just, and
How many people were there at that time?
It wasn't very big. I can't remember. I can remember a lot of the names, and I guess if I'd sit down and list and count, I would get a good many of them. But I don't think we were, I don't think we had 100. Because it was not a very big room we met in, and we didn't ever have standing room only. So, but Bob, my husband, was baptized not too long after that, because they worked with him, and he was open to study. He had grown up in a Methodist orphanage, and
So he didn't know who his mom and dad was?
oh yeah, he wasn't an orphan. In a day when almost nobody divorced, his parents were divorced. Of course, mothers always got custody in those days, no matter what. And there were 3 of them, and she promptly placed them in an orphanage. The 2 older ones in Oakmont, and the younger one was in one that just took babies. And he was there till his sister was 3 years older than he was. They would only keep boys till they were 14. And when he hit 14, and their mother was living in Akron at the time, and they went back there. But he ended up on his own, not more than 16, 17 years old.
Did he ever reconcile with his mom?
Oh, as much as sent her money while she was in the Army. But they were not real close. I mean, yeah, we saw her all the time, and but he was easy taught, because he didn't have any strong bonds to the. I mean, in there they took them to Sunday school all the time, but I've been in some of their Sunday schools and don't learn much Bible there.
Yeah.
Good principles, treat people good and all like that, but not biblical.
Right.
But he was always, when he was converted, he was really converted. And
That's awesome.
even growing up in an orphanage like that, he was, you see people all the time that, they had such a hard life growing up. He was a marvelous husband and father. So and was a very dedicated Christian.
Mhm.
But at 55, he got, there was something they'd picked up in the South Pacific, but it's very similar to Alzheimer's.
Mm.
Mm.
And he was at home 3 years, not able to work. But for 7, he was in the VA hospital.
Mm.
And by the time he died, he was just drawn up and was so thin he looked like a stick figure in the bed.
Mm.
But didn't know, was just like comatose.
Mm.
Didn't, they had used a feeding tube, which I wouldn't have done, but didn't have any choice.
Mm.
And so I've been a widow for 27 years now, and but 28, I guess. But God keeps you going.
Yep.
He took very good care of me. I particularly like, of course, I've been a stay-at-home mom, and did church work and Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and all of those things. That church camp. You go to Camp Concern.
Can't
No.
say that I have.
Oh.
I've been there to visit, but I've never.
You should go.
I don't know. I'm not much of a camp person.
It's very rustic, but it was, my kids loved it. I used to go, I did, was craft director.
Mhm.
And as soon as my youngest one got where he could, was in senior, so that I didn't have to leave one at home, I worked all 3 weeks of camp as craft director.
Mm.
And, but, I mean, we loved it, and so all of that. But when my oldest one was in college, and the youngest one graduated high school and was ready to go in the fall, when he had to retire.
Mm.
And I knew I was going to have to work. He worked at the post office, and they never made a ton of money, but he had time enough in that he could do an early retirement with his Army, because he was 5 years in the Army.
Mm.
And so when I knew I was going to have to go to work, they have a dog upstairs.
Oh, that's the
very
dog.
I saw him in the
Oh.
window.
And I had no idea what I was going to do after that time and all. And Mellon Bank called me one night and said, someone gave us your name that you might be